Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you how to download and use Metaboard and add Metaboard to your own Roblox world. And then we'll also go into a few details of how Metaboard works. And we can discuss some improvements that we want to make in future. As you can see, I'm on the Metaboard GitHub repository where all of the development will take place. And so, yeah, it's open source now. So feel free to make contributions, and I will figure out how to merge pull requests, and we'll make Metaboard even better.
Have you
Um,
seen my pull request?
yeah, I did see it, and I told Dan I don't know what to do with this because I want to be able to test this to make sure you haven't ruined everything before I merge it, right? Um, uh,
Okay.
we can go into that in a second. Let me just go to let me just explain the uh, install method, I guess, first, and then we'll go into the more complicated stuff. So yeah, if you've used a GitHub repository before, I'm aware the people that I'm directly talking to now probably know how to do all this, but I'm intending to address anyone watching a recording of this as well. Just keep in mind. So, uh, if you've used a GitHub repository before, you can just clone it by whatever means you clone repositories. There's a link there you can use, or you can download zip, which will just download all of the files in a zip file, which you can extract and proceed the same as I'll be proceeding. So the first thing I'll do is clone this. So I'm doing git clone and then the URL, and that puts it into this directory called Metaboard, and I can open that here to the right so you can see all the files, all of the source code. So this is all the code that runs on in Roblox on the server and on the clients to communicate all of the lines being drawn. That all appears here, and uh, while I'm developing it, this all gets synced into Roblox Studio via a tool called Rojo, which I'll show in a second. But if all you want to do is add Metaboard to your Roblox world, you just need this file here called metaboard.rbxmx. In future, this will probably actually appear under this releases tab of GitHub of the repository. But for now, it's actually just in the main code. So for now, if you just want to add it to your world, first step is to actually open your world in Roblox Studio. And let's just go simple for now. So I'll just make a plain new world, but this can be your like existing world. And we just need to add something to ServerScript service, which is this metaboard file. So let me just open that over here. So I want to put just drag metaboard over, and it will probably get dropped into the workspace, which is and the folder is called metaboard server. And you just need to put this into ServerScript service. I'll probably also be adding this metaboard server file to the toolbox at some point. So you'll be able to probably just drag it in from Roblox Studio. But essentially, what this is a folder containing all of the components, the server side and client side components of Metaboard, all in, and also the GUI in one folder. And there's just a script that as soon as your world starts, it just places everything in the right spot. Um, so that's what this RBXMX file is. It's just all of the code packaged all together into a thing that you can put into server script service, which will then dump everything where it needs to be. Okay, so that puts the sort of backend code uh, into your world, but you'll notice there's no whiteboards yet. Um, Also in the repository is so Metaboard is sort of two parts. It's the backend code that sort of manages all of the boards, and then separate to that is like the actual boards that you create in the world themselves. So there's an example board in the repository called whiteboard model. So if you drag that one in, um, it gets placed into the workspace. It's right there, and you can also move it wherever you like. Place it there. Um, and I guess a change from in the past, the name of this whiteboard model was important, but now these boards are identified based on what objects they are. So you can feel free to rename this as you please. That won't affect anything. Um, but yeah, anyway, so we've done all that, and that actually is all you need to do to get started. So if I now play this world, I now have the whiteboard there, and I can use it. Um, and also, what comes with in the backend code is these personal boards, which get added uh, to your personal tools that you have. So that just spawns a small board that you can use. So all of these board components, like what the appearance of the board and the sort of shape and size, can be customized to some extent. You'll find the personal board. Uh, well, if you did it, uh, yeah, sorry, you'll find the personal board in Metaboard Common, which will either be under this one folder, or if you synced all the stuff in directly, it'll be in replicated storage. But yeah, here's the personal board model here, so you can customize that if you wanted. Um, so yeah, that's the basics of adding Metaboard to your existing Roblox world. Um, any questions about that? Okay, so yeah, and I actually sort of improved on the flexibility of that. So if we, I wonder if I can go to the toolbox. Let me see if I can find like the. It's just frozen for a bit. I wonder if I can find the stone tablets from. Uh, let's see if we can make this into a whiteboard as an example. Uh, all right. What are these pieces? Maybe the back of it? Yeah, let's try and turn the back of this into a whiteboard. Um, Actually, maybe something like this would be more sensible. What is this? What is this? Well, remove that, and I'm gonna call this board, but this isn't like this is just so we can identify it. It's not like a important part of the recognition of this as a board. Okay, so this is just me explaining now the sort of, I guess, API of setting up your own custom board and sort of making it plug into the rest of Metaboard. Okay, so if we look at whiteboard, you can sort of copy what's going on here. So I guess surface light is, again, something cosmetic about this board here. You don't necessarily need that. But these other two things, this one, surface GUI, is critical. The entire model link is only important for the personal boards. Essentially because we consider the sort of the board itself is the part that you're going to write on. So that's this component of the whiteboard. And then there's this sort of entire model, which sort of houses all of the parts of your board. And when you're in the world and you spawn the personal board, you want like the entire model to appear and disappear. And if I were to do that in code by saying, oh, well, the model is just the parent of this board part, then that would just break immediately if that wasn't the exact structure of your custom personal board, I guess. So what this is an object value, which I actually found, well, I discovered because of Jai. Sorry, not Jai. Ben. Was explaining something that involved object values. And so this is actually a link to this model itself. So the value of this, you can click on this value field of entire model, and then you click on the model that contains all the parts of the board. And this is the reference that gets used in the code to figure out what is the entire, what are all the pieces of the board. Not just the actual board part. Yeah.
What is that used for?
So that's used for the personal boards. Like technically, I could have just hard coded the actual structure of the personal boards. So that's these ones here. So in what is it, personal board manager, I get the entire model from the board, and I parent it to the workspace, or I parent it to replicated storage, or I set the C frame of the entire model to via that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I guess so that's, I guess, not super important for this stone tablet. I mean, for this thing, but we do need surface GUI. So I guess the easiest way is probably just copy, and then this needs to be directly under the board, and then there is a sort of you need to configure the adornee of the surface GUI. So this is the surface GUI is at the moment how we are clicking on the boards. So when you're in the world and you want to open up a board to have it shown up in the GUI, it uses this button on this surface GUI, and so you need to set the adornee to this actual board part here, and then you would probably the other issue is figuring out where it shows up on the actual part, because sometimes it shows up on the, so at the moment it's showing up on the front, but I don't know, depending on how you've designed your part, you'll have to figure out where front is. So easiest way to do that is probably to this board button essentially takes up the entire surface GUI. If we turn off the transparency, oh, there it is. There is the supposed front of this part. But let's change that for the surface GUI. Change the front. Where's left? All right, so it's the left face we want. So that will draw on there. Let's change the button to be transparent again. Oh, you might also be concerned about the orientation of it. So let's just check that. Okay, it is upright. So I just added a text field to the board button, which shows up on the service GUI. All right, so now, we've set up the way that this board can be clicked on to open it up. The last thing is to actually indicate to Metaboard that this part here is actually it is a Metaboard for it to handle. So the way we do that is with collection service. So you can read about collection service here, not the API. And so this is just a way of scripting a bunch of objects by what kind of object they are. So there's this concept of a tag, which is just a string. And at any point in your code, you can ask collection service to give you all of the things with that tag. And you can also react to when things when a tag gets added to some object or taken away from some object. And yeah, so the tag we use is it's called Metaboard. So if you and currently there's no like inbuilt editing of this. We want to add tag to this part here, but we can only do that in code at the moment. But what you can do is you can get this plugin called Tag Editor, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Tag Editor. So I'll probably add there'll be a link to this in the repository, and a bunch more documentation coming soon.
Can we just execute a command in the Roblox Studio console? I mean, if it's a very short command, that would be relatively straightforward, right?
So you can go get service, collection service, add tag. Wait, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
Yeah, add tag. And then we'd need the instance. So you go game dot workspace.
Make sure you use a colon for add tag.
Oh yeah, that's probably why I didn't autocomplete. The workspace dot stone. And then we need to give it the string. So at the moment this is metaboard. We can add that like that. It gets added kind of silently, again because there's no inbuilt way. But so that's one way of doing it. The other way is with this tag editor. And so you sort of make a collection of tags here by this is metaboard, and when you select an object, like select this the board. Oh yeah, and this is I guess an important part that you shouldn't mess up is we want to tag. Oh, which I did mess up here. I did this wrong. I tagged the model with metaboard, which is incorrect. I need to tag the actual part that the line should appear on. Yeah, so, and I can see that stone has the metaboard tag, so I can turn this off. I've now removed the tag with this tag editor. And let's go to board and add it to that. So now this should work. There's one more part about these boards that we can customize, which is sort of already set to the right thing at the moment. Because the other thing is when you click on a board and it shows you the GUI, the background color of the canvas is set to the color of the part that has the metaboard tag. So that'll be exactly this color will be the background. So if you change this value to orange or something, it's orange on the part, and that's also the background color of the canvas in the GUI that comes up. So let's just leave it like that, just for style points. And pray this works. So we're gonna open it up, click on this, and cool. Okay, so I think, let me just, so it's come up like a very different aspect ratio. And I know why. Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand this. So, this is working. It's just drawing on this face, and that's why it was vertical. The surface GUI is on the front, and so while I sort of said that you could customize where the surface GUI is, currently the code is hard coded so that it will always just draw above the front face of the object, no matter what it is. That's something we could improve on. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad at least that worked to some degree. So that's, I guess, yeah. So the orientation will be whatever the true orientation is of the object, and if you sort of flipped your object for some reason, then everything will appear flipped. We might, yeah. So there might be like ways to sort of allow that to be customized, but another way to get around this is you have whatever your model is, and what you actually do is you add a part to it. Which part is this? This one. And you. Oh, whoops. Oh no, I broke it. Look, it literally fell apart. Okay. No, what I had in mind was you just make an invisible part that coincides exactly where you want the lines to appear. So if we wanted it to be this surface, we would just make an invisible part that appears exactly on that surface, and then the front will be the correct orientation and position and everything. And so if your model did, like, I guess, I don't know why you would want to draw on something other than a flat surface, but maybe if the flat surface isn't like a part that has uh, the right X and Y's that Metaboard uses, you can still sort of place upon it a rectangular part that will draw the lines in the right spot. Okay, well, so that's the demonstration uh, of setting up Metaboard for now. and we can move on to the development side of things. Is there anything about this that you guys are particularly interested in me explaining, or should I just pick something?
What, like how the boards work themselves, or your process in like packing them up and I guess putting them out there?
Yeah, about how the boards work, but actually I should you should just remind me. I should now just go through. Well, I'll just explain. I guess I'm addressing Dan now how to like set up this integration with VS Code.
Okay.
Or anyone else who wants to contribute to this. So, I'm back at this repository. Yeah, I'm inside it. Let's open this in VS Code. Let's make a new world to just start from scratch. Get rid of this one. Okay. So the main tool that we're using is called Rojo, and the most reliable way to set it up with this project is through a tool called Forman. And this is probably the I think is kind of the most annoying part for me is downloading Forman, but it's over here. This is the Forman repository. So this is there's a bunch of different tools that that people use for developing in Roblox, but not actually in Roblox. And they are all managed by this tool chain manager called Forman. And so if you go to the releases, you can download a zip file, and this will actually give you the executable which you run in the terminal. And so you'll need to add that to your path, which I did I moved it to use a local bin, and I also had to allow it to be executed. The process is probably different on Windows. Is there a straightforward way to do it on Windows that you guys know of?
Yeah, there's like a GUI editor for path variables.
Okay. Yeah, do you know of any good like guides about installing it? Because I couldn't really find anything on the Foreman page.
I can look for something. I'm sure there's a video on YouTube.
Okay. But anyway, once you've got Foreman, because I've got this config file here that tells you what versions you need of these tools, all you need to do is run Foreman install, and I already have them in my sort of default directory, so you can see which ones they are by doing Foreman list. So Rojo is what will sync this code directly into this project.
Just to be clear, Billy, so you should run Forman install in the GitHub repository folder that contains this forman.toml file, right?
Yeah, that's where I am. So
yeah,
I'm in the repository right now, as you can see. Yeah, okay. So now we want to actually set up the Rojo server. So there's two parts of this. So to actually start the server, you just type Rojo serve. And because I didn't specify which of these project files I want to use, it uses the one called default. And this is essentially, this tells Rojo how all of my files here correspond to my Roblox game. So, for example, this replicate, it's saying at the top level of my game is replicated storage, and under that is a folder called Metaboard Common, and the path to that is specified as source common, which is how it is in my repository directory here. So the result of this is that this folder here with all this code should get replicated under replicated storage Metaboard Common. So I've set up the Rojo server, which is conscious of all of this configuration and is ready to like chuck it into Roblox Studio. So all you need to do is open up Roblox Studio, and well, if you already have the Rojo plugin, you can just click connect. If you don't have it yet, I think you can just go Rojo install plugin. Other way around, Rojo plugin install. And I don't know if it just does it silently or it just didn't do anything because I already have it, but it should install this plugin. For more help with Rojo, you can go to rojo.space, and there's some explanation under getting started.
So if I had multiple Roblox Studio files open at the same time, I mean, I just Rojo run in each folder would set up 2 different servers on 2 different ports. Is that the canonical way of using it?
Yeah, you can configure a port with these project files. Yeah, you just have to be careful about what port you connect to, because it'll just instantly start throwing things in. The way this is configured with these ignore unknown instances set to true, what this will do is I've made it so like you could add this, you could Rojo serve these files or all this stuff into whatever Roblox world you have, and as long as you didn't pick any of these exact names for your files that's all start with Metaboard, then nothing should get overwritten, and anything that's already there should just be left alone.
So what is this name field that's metauni-whiteboard? What does that actually mean? I mean, it could serve this stuff into any Roblox Studio file, not necessarily one called metauni-whiteboard, or am I confused?
Oh yeah, I think this is just the name of the project file. This should probably just be called Metaboard. I meant to change that. I don't know what that really affects. Yeah. Anyway, let's actually sync it in then. So, I was going to mention also, as you can see on here, there is this command line tool which I've been showing, but there's also if you're using VS Code, which you don't have to use, there's a Rojo plugin. Extension for VS Code, which does all of the same stuff. So you can use one or the other, and then starting the Rojo server, there's a sort of button down here, or there's also all different options you can get to from the menu here. But let's just do it from the command line. So we go Rojo serve, start it, and if we go connect, it has now dumped in all of the stuff. So these are the 4 locations and all the contents, and this reflects exactly this directory structure. So just as a quick demo, if I so the workflow here is essentially just don't bother touching any script stuff in Roblox Studio, and instead you just edit everything in your preferred editor. And so, for example, if I go to that startup script, want to add hello world. As soon as I save this, this gets updated. I believe there is some sort of development on making this work two ways, so that like edits here are reflected over here. But I understand that that's somewhat experimental, and I've just not explored that for now. So you just make all your edits in your preferred editor,
So
and then just
in particular, you should probably have what team create turned off, or like a rule that people get swatted around the head if they edit script files that are under the command of Rojo. Is that?
Yeah. So I mean, there's some stuff here that's not quite fleshed out yet. I don't. Yeah. To answer your question, I don't really know. So what does it say?
The page you're looking at has looked like that for years. They're not going to add to it. I think in general, like if you're using Team Create, you should be coding in Roblox. You shouldn't write code in Team Create. Or sorry, if you're syncing in your code, don't use Team Create.
Yeah.
Because I mean, what you could have a policy of moving stuff in the world is okay, but never open a script. But that's subject to concerns because Rojo might also be managing objects. Is that right? Or?
Yeah, so it does manage some objects, and specifically the ones I tell it to. So, well, this version of the project, the default one, does not touch this whiteboard model. But this demo one, which like adds more stuff, including the whiteboard model, does actually sync this specifically in. And so I think if we were using the demo one, and that whiteboard model came in and we edited it, I think like if you turn off Rojo and then turn it back on again, it will override whatever changes you make. But if you like made another object next to it, depending on how I've configured this, if ignore unknown instances is true, then they won't be touched.
Okay, so it seems like if you're going to manage objects like this one with Rojo, you want to view them as sort of platonic ideal objects that maybe live in server storage or something, and then you might copy them and instantiate them. But having a mix of objects in the world, I mean, I don't want to give up editing things in Roblox Studio, especially if they're visual things, because it's much better. So,
well, I can explain what I've actually been doing is, well, I made this whole board GUI in Roblox Studio, and as I was developing all this other code, like there was plenty of changes that I wanted to make to this, and so my workflow at the moment has been, if I make a change to this, I right click and go save file, and then I save it as an RVXMX file, and I just save it over. I just overwrite the same file, and then like you could, I guess, turn Rojo off and on. I don't think it wouldn't really make a difference, but yeah. So all of the objects that I want to just have exist statically and not like create them in my code, they're all just saved as RBXMX files, and they are synced in by Rojo. Yeah, it just natively knows how to copy all those things in. Yeah, there is some I've seen on the Rojo page. So the most native things it does is handle server scripts, client scripts, and module scripts. And module scripts just have the normal .lua extension, but there's a sort of custom extension so that Rojo recognizes this as a server script and this is a client script. But yeah, you can also have JSON modules and JSON models. And I believe like in this demo file, I want to have an actual base plate so that there's actually something to land on in the world. But I don't like save the base plate as an RBXMX file. Like, so that would be one option. I could save the base plate and whatever else I want as RBXMX files and then sync them in. But there is some API for just creating things by, all you have to do is just name the thing, tell it what kind of thing it is. So whether it's a model or a part or whatever. And then you can just assign properties. I don't know if you can, if like any property at all is assignable, at least these kinds of things. Like a color, you just give it the value of a list of 3 numbers, and it'll sync in properly. But there might be some limitations to that. I don't really know. It seems as if even the things that are enums, you can just give it a string that has the same value as the enum. Cool. Okay. I just need to charge my iPad again because it went flat while I was talking.
I don't know if
any
you're
other
planning to, but I'd be interested to hear a recap of, given that it's recently changed, when you draw on the canvas, what actual Roblox object is made there, like frames versus whatever, and what actually appears in the world.
Yeah, let's go through that. Sorry, just a minute. Well, let's actually go through and just make that. Oh, there's no whiteboard here. Oh yeah, so in this default project, it doesn't throw in any particular whiteboard. You just have to copy one in yourself. I'll do that there. Okay, so if I went to this board and I added a box handle adornment. Okay, so it's parented to it, but that doesn't mean anything for handle adornments. You can put them in the workspace. You can even put them in player GUI if you want them to be clickable, which we don't make use of. What matters is the adornee. And so if I adorn it to the board, it gets placed in the exact center of that part. So it's right there. And so so these are different to parts because parts have all this physics and collision, and they cast shadows and things like this. I think some of those settings you can turn off. But box handle or handle adornments are much simpler. They're just a sort of there's no physics to them. And so what you configure about them is the size relative offset. And so kind of annoyingly, all these values are between 1 and -1. So if I set y to 1, it'll go to the top. And then -1 is the bottom. The z value is the sort of in-out value. So I could set that to 1. And now I think the center of this object is now at the front surface. But it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be between. yeah, you're not restricted to between 1 and -1. So this could be 10. Well, let's go -10. We'll come toward this. So that comes further out the board, or -20. So this is how something is positioned relative to the board. And so you'll notice if I move this around, it goes with it. So the big difference to the parts we were using is the parts were at some fixed coordinate in the world, whereas these are positioned relative to whatever part you have it adorning to.
So finally we can have lectures on a boat or on a train.
Yeah, I was thinking about ways we could extend this.
That's cool.
Yeah, so this can be moved around. And the other thing is, so the size is absolute. So this is a number of studs, I believe. So if this is 20, if this is 24 studs, I think that's the exact length of the board. Yep. So yeah. I just noticed this z-index thing. Somehow didn't notice that before. And I wonder if you have two different box handle adornments at the exact same sort of z position in terms of size relative offset, if this would actually resolve them so that there's no z fighting. That's probably how it works.
I remember using that a while ago, and there was some reason that I didn't end up using it in the code, and I think it was something to do with the fact that it doesn't work for different. Like if you have, I think I was trying to use it to control the having curves appear on top of other curves if they were drawn later.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't work because they need to be attached to the same object for the z-index to be relevant.
They need to be attached to the same object.
Yeah, it's like it needs to be two like because everything had its own surface GUI. This is stretching my memory a little bit, but I think because every object had its own surface GUI, that doesn't work because they weren't all on the same GUI.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Actually, we can just try this now. Let's make this one. There's no Z fighting if they're the same color. Looks like that one's pointing. Let me rotate this. I can't rotate this. Let's move it up a little bit. Right, so there is some Z fighting there. Let's move it a bit closer. Okay, I now set a red one to a larger Z index. Nope, doesn't fix anything. Okay, never mind.
Wait, try changing blue to 1 because I think -1 means something special. Ah, okay.
Okay. Anyway, let's I don't know what I could talk about the communication between the client and server in terms of the boards. Or we could go through something else. What do you guys think?
I'm interested to know what the curves look like in code. Like the parts for the curves, are they backed by something in Lua?
The sort of world, like the 3D lines.
Yeah, like how would you know what part to erase? Are you looking directly at the 3D parts positions?
Yeah, okay, let's go through that. Okay, so where should we start? Let's go to, all right, so this is all the client stuff side is under client. And we have the main entry point is this startup script, which everything. Oh, this is another thing about like this project, which is different to I think how we've usually been doing it, is that I just have a lot of everything as a module script, which just helps me in organizing things and naming things. And more importantly, they all have this initializing method, which allows me to just have one local script. So this here is a local script, and it just grabs all of those module scripts and initializes them in whatever order I want them to initialize in. And I can also pass things between them. So for example, I can make this, this is the module that controls all of the drawing code. And I've made the startup script do the task of telling it exactly where the board GUI is. Or for example, the button script, I just pass in the toolbar so it doesn't have to hard code some reference to the toolbar. Yeah, anyway. So all the interesting drawing stuff happens under the drawing script. So have these functions called tool down, tool moved, and tool lift. So the tool is either a pen or an eraser, and the equipped tool, the one that you're using right now, is stored there. And you also have some reserved tool. So if you are using an eraser and you then choose a color, it will figure out what was the last used pen that you were using and then set that pen's color to that color. And so that's what reserved tools use for. Anyway, so essentially in the initialization function, I connect all of these drawing logic functions through the user input service or like events that should trigger them. And so there's certain code that makes sense. That there's certain code that should go in here, and there's some logic might more appropriately be housed in this sort of in connecting to this like mouse moved event or something. For example, I could put like draw tool cursor under tool moved, but I think it makes a lot more sense happening here. So tool moved is just about, I guess, drawing it on the canvas. Okay, so under tool down or tool moved, this is where I first, I figure out if you're currently clicking or like if you've got the mouse held down, or if you've got your Apple Pencil pressed to the screen. That's what that check does. Okay, it calls this erase function if you currently have the eraser equipped, and this is done pretty naively. So canvas state maintains all the logic of what you should see on your GUI at this time, and this is the one that does the erasing by iterating over all of the curves. So each curve is made up of a bunch of different lines, which are all frames, and it goes through all of them and asks this function here if the cursor position intersects the line that starts here, stops here, and has this thickness. Whether the eraser with that radius intersects that, and if it does, then I call this line frame destroyer, which drawing tool, this function call here said that whenever you find a line that intersects the eraser, you should tell the server about it. So there's a dedicated remote event that fires whenever you find a line that should be erased. And then it also just deletes the line. So this just destroys the line. So the server end, it's not recalculating where the erasing position is and calculating what lines intersect. It's just being told which lines to remove. Which leads to a lot of, this gets triggered a lot of times. So what I want to do is change this so that this erase function should actually just gather all of the lines that are currently intersecting the cursor. Sorry, the eraser. And then I think I should just pass all of those at once off in as one chunk to the server, rather than firing an event for every single line that should be erased. But that's how it works at the moment. Okay, let me just explain in the Rising Sea. Dan, if you could record the screen there. I'm just going to explain how the server interacts with the clients. So here is, I'm just going to draw the physical board in green. And so this is, I'll call this the world board. And we have two clients here. Client 1 and client 2. And I guess this goes into sort of how Roblox games work. Everyone has their own copies of the world board. And yeah, so Roblox, when a line gets added to like the world board, or anything gets added to the workspace by the server, there's what Roblox does is it tells all of the clients, please add that same object to your copy of the workspace. If a client adds something to their workspace, that doesn't get replicated on other people's workspaces. So the way that we communicate back and forth is done differently based on the direction that it happens. So for client to server communication, so I'm going to draw these. This is the board GUI. So this is the UI that you see, that you have pulled up when you click on a board. Yeah, so the client has their own copies of that. What happens when someone draws a line on their board? Say client 1 draws a circle. That triggers the draw line remote event. So the client fires that event for the server. The server then knows, all right, I need to draw a line at that point. So the server will spawn a line on the world board in the corresponding point. And it will also it will also store the sort of the attributes. It'll store like the canonical coordinates of the start and end of the line. So like the world board and the board GUI have different coordinate systems. So I need to be able to read what the on the next client, they need to know where to draw the line. and so we make use of the attribute method for instances in Roblox. So for any instance, you can add whatever attribute you like to any Roblox objects, and then you can just read that again later. So yeah, so draw a line triggers the server. The server makes the corresponding lines or the corresponding line in the world, and writes the particular attributes to it. And so automatically that triggers this sort of duplication or replication by Roblox from the server to the clients. And what happens is if the client has the board GUI open for that particular board, they will react to this event. So we jump, Dan, if you jump back to my Discord screen share, just let me know when you're ready. Okay, so we're now in Canvas state. So this is a client-side script. And the init function made it so that here's the part where if some board gets that collection service board tag, whenever you click it, when the tag gets added to the board, it runs this connect open board button, and this connects that surface GUI button to this function, which opens up the board. And this open board function, at one of the steps is enabling the GUI so you can see it. And there's another step about just going through all the, looking at all the lines that are already drawn on the board and recreating those on the GUI. But this is the step that gets the servant, this is the step that reacts to the server to client interaction. So so it makes this, this is the actual board in the world. So this is the part that you added that collection service tag to. They automatically get a curves folder added to them by some other part of the code. But because that's a Roblox instance, it has a descendant added event associated to it. And so that's a Roblox signal. And you can connect any function to that reacts whenever some Roblox object is added as a descendant of this object. And so you can pass in a function of that descendant, and this function just checks if it's a box handle adornment, which is the sort of top level component of a line in the world. And it also makes sure that I wasn't the one that just drew that line, because we don't, if I'm client 1 and I just drew the line, and then I see a line getting added to the workspace, I don't want to redraw that line if I was the one that just drew it. So this just makes sure of that. And then it just draws the line on the board GUI that you have up. And the reason for this, when you connect a function to a Roblox signal or an event, it returns like a connection, which is just a thing that you can later disconnect. So when you close the board, what I do is I disconnect both of those connections. So there was one for when lines get added in the world and ones where lines get removed, and I just disconnect both of those. And so what this does is, say we have like 1,000 boards in the world. If someone is drawing on a board, only the people that have that board open in their board GUI will be sort of reacting to the event of a descendant being added to that board. And that's the sort of core cycle of interaction between the client and the server for Metaboard. Any more questions? There's plenty more I can go into if you're just curious about certain component. Let me know.
I think in old boards we had like you could see which player was writing.
Yeah. I failed
is that in?
with that.
Okay.
I just don't have an event for that. So I do have like you can see your own cursor, and actually, if you go into the state draw tool cursor, it actually does add your name, but if it's you, then it makes the name invisible. But so if this was triggered, if you were getting events that tell you where other people's cursor is, this would be called on that, and then you would see both their cursor and their name to the bottom right of it.
The free draw works so that when you mouse over a stroke, you see who authored it. That may be a better choice for us than, I mean, I actually kind of prefer aesthetically the way it is now, where I don't see any silly words floating around all over the place. I just see the beautiful strokes.
I was going to ask you because I sort of didn't like that either.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we don't want you to have to position it exactly if it's a very small part, GUI element, right? So that could be a bit awkward to make it so you can mouse over something even if you're not quite on it. I don't know how easy that is. And we don't want a lot of heavyweight GUI objects, thousands of them sitting around, one per line. So I don't know.
I considered that, but also just adding just making them disappear after like 2 seconds or something. So only people that are actively drawing get the line. I mean, you might not like the name being there while they're drawing either, but that would get rid of like people just watching.
Yeah, at the same time, we do have the potential problem of there's 20 people in the audience and somebody is doing something stupid. Maybe just switch to only certain people whitelisted being able to write. Maybe that's where we're going anyway, but the advantage of having the names just appear is that even if you just glimpse it, I mean, if you happen to see it in action, you know the name. Mousing over it, maybe if there's a lot going on, it's quite difficult. I guess maybe it's a question of we don't actually clearly know what we want the names for precisely, and if there's another way of achieving that goal, maybe we don't need the names. So yeah, I guess I'm undecided as to what the right trade-offs are here.
Mm-hmm. I think we could use mouse enter for the frames. I don't know if that would be better, because I was just thinking like to be able to mouse over them you might need to do some intersection logic, but there is like a mouse enter event for frames.
On the other hand, you definitely don't want that to fire over and over when you're writing on the board, right? I guess that's easy enough to handle.
There's no real mouse over while you're like using a tablet, right? Like you wouldn't be even able to use that, right?
Maybe it would be even better. Well, maybe there are use cases for seeing the names outside of administration, so maybe that's too constraining. But if that is the only purpose, then maybe there just needs to be like an attribution mode where you click on it and then whenever you move your mouse around, you see who wrote what. And then if it's a bit slow, who cares, because it's kind of a very niche usage anyway.
Another thing would be like we could like animate the arm of the character who's drawing. Just you could have like a little wand or something, and you're just like wiggling it in the air, like, and then we can just like look around and see.
Oh, so Billy, I have an idea that could relate to this. So I was thinking, well, you could have, you know how like in Google Docs you can see in a circle of like who's looking at your document. Maybe we could do that, and then have a ring around anybody's circle who's actively drawing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Are there faces that we could extract from characters?
Yeah, there's a web API to grab their avatar's profile. Profile picture.
Right. Or even just their like Roblox character. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
that's what I
there's
mean.
a lot of duplicates faces, but yeah, good idea. There is actually, I've kind of lidded this with a bunch of to-dos. Not all of these under source. Yeah, things that I need to address later on. But